The Minister of Interior, Lieutenant General Abdulrahman Dambazao, retired, has directed the closure of all Nigerian land borders with effect from Friday, February 15 to Sunday, February 17 for the Saturday presidential and National Assembly elections. A press statement issued by the Controller General, Nigerian Immigration Service, NIS, Mohammed Babandide, in Abuja on Thursday stated that there will be restriction of movements across the Nigerian borders during the election on the days announced. He further called on the general public to take note and ensure compliance. Days to the commencement of the 2019 general elections, the People's Democratic Party (PDP) in Kaduna State has called for the redeployment of the Kaduna State Director of the Department of State Security over what it described as partisanship. The allegations were expressed at a media briefing in a swift reaction to the arrest of a spokesman, Ben Bako, by the DSS on Saturday. Comrade Danjuma Sarki, the PDP campaign organization's Deputy Director General, said the DSS has become compromised and partisan in Kaduna State, and further accusing the incumbent governor of the state, Nasir El-Rufai, as the biggest threat to global peace.
Are to be locked up shortly before the election. The plan is to lock away 150 leaders or more of the PDP at the state and local government areas on trump-up charges of hate speech and incitement during the campaign rallies. The intention is to send fears and weaken the spirit of the campaign and to stir crisis in the state. But unknown to the governor, El-Rufai and the DSS, the more he arrests us, the stronger the PDP gets. It is too late to reverse the determination of the traumatized people of Kaduna State. Nasir El-Rufai is the biggest threat to local and global peace. If anyone deserves impeachment, and I repeat impeachment here, arrest or arraignment for hate speech over the years, it has to be him. His tweets over the years have shown him to be an expert in hate speech as a private citizen and still as a governor, which is a great insult to even the exalted office that he occupies currently.
Thousands of protesting members of the All Progressives Congress (APC) in Rivers State in the early hours of Thursday blocked the main entrance of Rivers headquarters of the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) on Aba Road in Port Harcourt, insisting that the Electoral Commission must obey the ruling of Court of Appeal Port Harcourt and relist the main opposition party in the state, APC, and its candidates. The aggrieved protesters, who were armed with placards bearing various inscriptions and chanting "No APC, no elections in Rivers State," were led by the party's candidate for Rivers Southeast Senatorial District, Orji Ngofa, who is Nigeria's ambassador to the Netherlands. Ngofa insisted that he and other APC members will not leave until their protest letter was personally handed over to the REC of INEC in Rivers for onward transmission to the national chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. President Muhammadu Buhari has commended former President of the United States, Bill Clinton, for his continued support for Nigeria and the growth of her democracy. The president, who took a telephone call from President Clinton Wednesday night, described him as a friend of the country, while commending Clinton's constant support for the peace, stability and progress of Nigeria under a democratic dispensation. President Buhari also assured Clinton of his commitment to free, fair and credible elections in the weeks ahead. Former President Bill Clinton, in his reaction, regretted his inability to visit the country to witness the signing of the final peace accord before the general elections and wished Nigeria well as the citizens go to the polls. The Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, SAN, has asked the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) to allow the All Progressives Congress (APC) Zamfara State to field candidates for the general elections. Malami, who doubles as the Minister of Justice, made the call in a letter to INEC dated February 13, stating that INEC could not foreclose the right of a political party to participate in elections without recourse to the Act, and urged INEC to postpone the National Assembly, Governorship and State Assembly elections in that state to enable APC catch up with the other parties. Malami in the letter implored INEC to comply with the judgment of the Court of Appeal by admitting the results of the APC Zamfara primaries and to comply with the provisions of Section 38 of the Electoral Act, which empowers the Commission to postpone the election for the governorship, National Assembly and House of Assembly elections. A workshop was held in Kaduna on awareness and prevention of mental health illness in Northwest and the country at large. Experts at the workshop say there is a link between substance abuse and mental illness, saying most people who are mentally ill do not even know they have such illness or disorder. Addressing newsmen after the workshop, Dr. Awal Salihu, a consultant psychiatrist, stated that mild mental illnesses are not easily identified in Nigeria because people don't give mental health the necessary attention it deserves.
Without mental health. So we also explained that there are over 300 diagnosable mental illnesses, some of them mild and some of them moderate and some of them severe. And we also explained that majority of this mental illness are of mild to moderate severity, and they are the one that people cannot identify much. The severe mental illnesses are readily identifiable because people behave grossly abnormally. They may be complaining about hearing voices or seeing things other people do not see. But the mild and moderate mental disorders, things that people like me and you can walk about with them and suffering in silence, except if we go and complain to the expert and they are able to detect it, then that's when we can get help.
Dr. Awal further clarified that the way other parts of the body get sick from different causes, the brain also gets ill, either through biological, social, or psychological cause, and call for a review of the healthcare system in Nigeria to pay more attention to mental health.
Problem that concern the brain. Just the way we can have heart problem, lungs problem, kidney problem, heart problem, the brain too has problem. And it doesn't have to be there, may be mild ones, there may be severe ones, okay? So most mental illnesses are attributed to brain problem. So drugs are only one of the things that can cause problem with the brain and then cause mental health issues. But there are a lot of other things. There are infections, there are people can inherit and people can have brain injury, okay? Then people can have it from other diseases, like somebody with diabetes or hypertension or something. It's possible he can have some other complication that will affect the brain and then he will have problem. There are psychiatric problems that also emanate from childbirth. After delivery, women can have some of this mental health problem like postnatal depression, postnatal psychosis, and so on. So there are a lot of mental health problems, but most of the time the cause of that mental illness is not one. Okay, there are a lot of factors involved. Some of them biological factors, some of them social factors, some of them psychological factors.
Valentine's Day, or the Feast of St. Valentine, is an annual celebration that comes up every February 14, and incidentally, this year's Valentine's Day comes at a period when Nigerians are preparing for their general election. Seen as Lovers' Day in the secular world, Valentine's Day is associated with romantic love and provides occasion for lovers to express their love for each other by presenting flowers, confectionaries, and sending greeting cards. Correspondent Zura Hamza was on the streets of Abuja to sample the opinion of Nigerians on this year's love story.
I think Valentine is a day that is a special day that is meant for young people like us to go out there and have fun, too much and
Valentine is a lover's day. It's a day set aside for lovers to, remember one of the things they've done in the course of their, trying to perform their marital duties and whatever. That's how I saw Valentine.
About sharing of love.
the love we are sharing is not sex. Love one another, just like the Bible says. Then, the Bible also talk about gifts. You share what you have to others. Mostly, you visit homeless people, the widows, the widowers, and so on. So that's what I understand about it.
Valentine, we are going to understand Valentine is Lovers Day, but maybe not Lovers Day in the street sense, but a time where you show love, people love, and things like that.
Okay, what do you understand by Valentine?
I understand Valentine as a season where people celebrate or notify love for each other. You understand? Like the misconception where people think is where two lovers go and mate or do sort of things. Like I myself, I'm a religious person. I'm a born-again Christian. I understand Valentine is just a period to mark that we love each other. No matter the tribes, like what's going on in Nigeria, the tribal wars, all this, that. This is a period for us to know that love leads, love conquers all.
What's your name?
I'm Godwin.
Godwin what?
Okay. Yeah, Valentine, I think, is a day set aside February 14 for love, celebration of love. I think there's a story I know that speaks of Saint Valentine, who died for a very lovely person on that day, and since then I feel it as a
So how do you plan to spend this year's Valentine?
I plan to spend it in a very wonderful place. It's not very special.
Okay, so sing a song for her now. One short love song, even if not rap.
Yo, ta! I slap police for your case.
Okay.
It's a season of love. Show to your friends, your loved ones, your family. It must not be a particular person in quotes. It's a season of love.
So how do you plan to spend this year's Valentine?
This year's Valentine, I would love to celebrate it with my colleagues. Actually, that day I'm off, but I would love to go to the office and spend it with them. It's my first time to spend it on the year. So I love to spend it with them.
Okay, so in your language, can you say Happy Valentine's Day to maybe your family, loved ones, or anyone?
Happy Valentine's Day to my friends, mom, dad.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, says it will not shift date for the presidential election despite recent fire incidents that destroyed several smart card reader machines it originally configured for the 2019 polls. The electoral body expressed its readiness to conduct the most credible elections in the history of the country during the unveiling of a central election monitoring hub for civil society organizations situated at Transcorp Hilton in Abuja, and which will be manned by the Nigerian Civil Society Situation Room and foreign election observation groups. Speaking at the event, the INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, who was represented by one of his national commissioners, Festus Okoye, noted that fire outbreaks that gutted election materials in 3 of its offices across the Federation constituted a setback to its earlier arrangements for a smooth conduct of the 2019 polls. He, however, insisted that the setback was not such that could significantly affect the election process, stressing that the Commission had since made alternative plans to replace over 4,695 card readers that were destroyed on Tuesday at INEC's warehouse in Anambra State. The Kano Police Command has arrested 2 suspects in possession of 14 bags of fake specimen ballot papers in Kano Metropolis. The command's public relations officer, DSP Abdullahi Haruna, made the confirmation to newsmen in Kano on Thursday, stating that the suspects were apprehended around Metropolis Area Command on February 13, Wednesday evening, by some police officers attached to Metro Area Command in the Metropolis. Haruna said during interrogation, the suspects said they came from Jigawa State and the materials were meant for sensitization and orientation purpose. According to them, the ballot papers are specimen, not genuine ballot papers. However, investigations are still ongoing as the case had since been transferred to the state's Criminal Investigation Department, the CID. Authorities in Indonesia have conducted raids in Surabaya and Makassar cities on Sulawesi Island to snuff out couples indulging in a morals act to celebrate Valentine's Day. Amorous couples were urged to quit the celebration as the raids were carried out to quash any wayward gift giving. About 100 students in the second biggest city, Surabaya, demonstrated against the chocolates and flower celebration, saying it promoted Western decadence and casual sex. In conservative Aceh province, the only place in Indonesia that imposes Islamic law, a fresh Valentine's prohibition was issued, citing religious norms. People are publicly whipped in the region for a wide range of offenses, including selling alcohol and gay sex, and similar bans have been ordered in previous years. Meanwhile, in India, more than 10,000 school children, some as young as 6, made a Valentine's Day pledge not to marry without their parents' consent. The vast majority of Indian marriages are arranged by families and couples who defy tradition to marry outside caste and religion and face a severe and sometimes deadly backlash.
It is few hours to the presidential election, and there is this belief that there will be an increase in buying and selling of goods in the market due to the restrictions of movement during the election. People have been advised to stock their houses with enough foodstuff. Right now, I'm on the streets of Abuja to know whether or not there is an increase in patronage. Stay with us.
It's patronage, not much, not as expected. Since 2 days on Saturday, we're having an election, so we're expecting customers to troop in large numbers to come and do their shopping. But the patronage is not all that much.
The election being on Saturday, we expected that by this time there will be inflow of cash. But as I'm talking to you now, sometimes I make a little sales, which I've been there a lot of things I'm supposed to do as a businessman. So there's no cash. And we're suffering. We are really suffering. As a businessman, I'm suffering. My business is suffering. My customers that are complaining, they are suffering. They don't have cash. So if the government know what to do, they should do to improve the well-living of Nigerians. That's my own opinion.
The election since January to now, we're not doing anything in the market. That's a lot of a problem in the market. You know, everybody is just still waiting for something to happen, but since January till now, nobody's selling anything. Everybody's complaining. It's right there. We are not selling anything in the market. So things worst.
Since last year to this moment, people are not coming to the market. People are not buying anything. There's no money in the land. Everybody's crying. Even the government people themselves are crying. We, the traders, are crying. They say that they are fighting corruption. We are not seeing whatever they have done. They have not done anything. They are not fighting anything at all. Because how can you be fighting corruption by dragging people into poverty? Okay, we listen to the economic summit last 2 weeks. Nigeria, come down, lowest in Africa, and we are boasting that we are trying to work Africa. We don't see this kind of government since I was born. I haven't witnessed this kind of a thing.
We are in the market hoping to see a lot of customers coming forth. Presently, the economy has not favored us. We have few patronage in the market, but we pray that it will be better.
You have all heard the views of traders in the market. Most of them are not satisfied with the situation of things in the market. We hope their business turn out well after the election. I am Chiwendi Osisiago. Thanks for watching.
Bukanafon local government area was one of the volatile areas in Akwa Ibom State where peace was recently restored through
Good day viewers, I am Patience Daniels. It's a Valentine's Day, and I'm here in the city of Abuja, here at Barnes, to ask viewers what their thoughts on Valentine is. And you can see, everywhere here is quite busy, and then let's hit the road, let's ask them what their views on Valentine is. Come, let's go.
As you can see, I'm up and about, trying to still make money. Like I said, I'm able to follow the general craziness of Valentine concept. I mean, it's a day to show love, we try to make it special, but nothing extra special. I feel like Valentine is a symbol of something that we should express every year. We shouldn't have to wait till 14th of February to show love and be the best version of ourselves. So I mean, every day should be Valentine.
Valentine is a moment of it's a day you share love, yes, I share to my friends, my family members, and my loved ones. To me, it means love.
Valentine is simply a name.
Okay.
I told you my name is Ayo Johnson. Valentine is just like Johnson, somebody's name. I just told you, I'm a Christian. I fellowship with the Christian Church, and in our Valentine is like any other day. There is nothing spectacular, nothing special about Valentine. Our God that we serve is love, and we learn that they say, oh, Valentine is for lovers, but you have to show love every day. So if you must make it, live a good life.
They actually got this, it's actually celebrating love, and then there's a story that they said about Valentine. So he died for the wife, so that's why they marked the date, so people are still celebrating for what he did. I'm saying hi to my mom, my dad, and Wale, they are in Ibadan, and my sisters, everybody that celebrates love. I'm saying Valentine.
Happy Valentine, Nigeria.
Happy Valentine.
Happy for it.
Happy Valentine, Nigeria.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Welcome.
Over the years, the issue of rape has been constantly discussed. But can this issue be overflowed? The answer is no. Welcome to Mata Africa, the program where we discuss key issues pertaining to women and children. And in today's episode, we will be talking about rape. I am Patience Ekonuhe Daniels, and with me in the studio this morning is Amina Omaru Nyango. Amina is a legal practitioner and a social media influencer. She has over the years been lending her voice to issues pertaining to women and children. Amina, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, what according to you is rape?
Oh, well. Let me use the definition by law. Rape is having sexual intercourse without consent. The key word being without consent, or if the consent is obtained inappropriately, maybe by threats or intimidation. That way. So basically, rape is having sexual intercourse without consent from the other person.
Okay. And at what stage can we separate sex from rape?
Wow. Well, that's a very tricky question, because we've been having this particular discussion for years and years. But basically, when consent is removed from the sexual intercourse, from a sexual meeting, that from that point afterwards, when the person says no, anything after that is rape. So you could be with someone and you're in the mood, the person accepts or shows you she is or he is open to the act. But at the point the person changes his or her mind. Remember, I'm saying his or her mind because the common misconception is that only women are raped. So at the point the person changes his or her mind, anything afterwards is rape. Yes.
So, what are the rules to success then?
The basic rule is make sure the person you're having sex with agrees to have sex with you. That's the basic thing. And make sure the person is, grounded enough to know that, yes, we are having sex and it is mutual. Make sure it is a mutually acceptable thing. Don't just assume that, the person, it's me, it's sex, nobody can turn me down, or things like that. We hear things like that. And also, recently, there was this discussion on if people should seek written consent. I think it's ridiculous though, but it seems the world is getting towards that because of the many cases of people being accused wrongly of rape. But then I need to add something. The cases of rape, actual rape, and those of false accusation are actually, the ones of actual rape are much more than, in every 100% of rape accusations, only about 1% are actually false accusations. So we also need to take that into consideration. It is a serious problem, but in the wider scheme of things, rape is actually more serious than,
in Nigeria, is there a legal age where a girl or a guy can, or a boy should attain before, or let's say a legal age to have sex in Nigeria, where every other sexual rules stops on or something? Is there a legal age?
That's a very tricky question because more kids are having sex these days. Parents don't want to hear it, but it is what is happening. Children, teenagers are experimenting with themselves. But I think what you're trying to ask is if, when it comes to adults and maybe teenagers and children, yes, the law under the Penal Act, which is Penal Code, which is the law that, the criminal law in northern Nigeria, any sex with anyone under the age of 14 is considered rape, whether the person gave consent. The basic is that anybody under 14 cannot give consent. So any sexual act to somebody under 14 is considered rape. In the South, which is governed by the criminal code, it's 16. So you can say the legal age for sexual intercourse in Nigeria is probably 16. But you need to consider the fact that children, teenagers are having sex with themselves. So that too should come into consideration. But when it comes to rape, an adult that has sexual intercourse with anybody below the age of 14 in the north and 16 in the south is liable for rape. Even if the person said yes, it is rape because it's considered that a child cannot give consent under the law.
Okay. Let's move on to molestation and sex with minors. Some time ago, I was opportunity to talk to a Muslim cleric So we discussed this sex with minors. We talked about rape, sex with minors, and all that. So I brought in this issue of child bride in the north, and I asked of his opinion on it, and he said in the slang that the time a girl is formally ripe for marriage immediately once she's started her menstrual period. And recently we seen women, little girls, saying the menstrual period from 8, 9. Personally, I started at before 29, and we've had issues of little babies also menstruating even before that age. I think the first woman to give birth, the youngest woman to give birth in the world is 5 years, one woman from India. So considering that statement that I am not versed in Quran, and considering what he said, like the right age in Islam to actually get married is once the lady starts menstruating, which can come either before 7, 8, 9, and in law, the consensual age for sex is 14. So how do we bring this in? Because I think these are minors. How do we bring this in?
I do not like talking about things when it comes to religion, because you know the thing with Nigerians and religion is we get blinded when we presume people are attacking our beliefs. I think any religious practice that actually encourages child marriage and underage sexual relations should need to question the provisions of that religion or whatever. It doesn't make sense. A child should remain a child. A child shouldn't be getting married. We shouldn't be having sex with children and all. And it also shows how inherently unjust Nigeria is, because we have these laws. The law is provided that anyone who has sex under the age of 14, a child cannot give consent. But then we have another law that says in the Constitution says that the age for maturity is 18, yeah? But it makes an exception for married women. That, okay, for example, if you get married at 12 or 13, it is assumed, it is presumed that you've reached the age of maturity. So when you have different laws within a space, a country, and then you don't streamline these laws, these are some of the things you get. So people are allowed to marry underage girls, and well, nobody will frown at them if they see the girl pregnant the next day, even though the law in that part of the country says otherwise. So it is presumed that once a woman is married, she has reached the age of maturity. So it's very tricky, and I wish that we'll actually have this conversation, because we can't move along with the world if we're still marrying of women at 13 and getting them pregnant, and it doesn't make sense.
Okay. Let's go on a short break. We'll be right Welcome again. In case you're just joining me, this is still Mata Africa, and still with me in the studio is Amina Amaru Niago, and we're still discussing rape. Before we went on the break, you mentioned that one can be held liable if one has sex with a minor below the age of 14 in the north and 16 in the south. Is there any age specified in the law for marriage in Nigeria? That a certain age that a girl child should get to before consenting to marriage in Nigeria?
Okay. The Constitution, as we all know, is silent when it comes to age of marriage for women. But the Child Rights Act, which was passed in 2003, I think, provides for the age of marriage 18 years for women. And though that law has only been replicated because Nigeria runs a federal system, for a law to actually be enforced at state level, the states usually have to pass those laws. So as of the last time I checked, I think about 25 states had domesticated the Child Rights Act as laws in their territories. But the thing is, even at that level, the age of marriage was reduced in some of them. Some of them reduced to 16 and thereabout. So yeah, the Child Rights Act provides for 18 years as the minimum age of marriage. But, well, like everything else, we just go about doing what we want to do. People are still marrying underage girls, and nothing is being done about it. And don't forget that the Constitution provides that anytime the age for maturity for a married woman is, well, if a married woman, as long as somebody is married, she has attained the age of maturity. So if you are 12 and you are married off, you've attained the age of maturity according to the Constitution. So that's where we are now.
Okay. Let's talk about the marital sin now.
Okay.
There has been cases of forced sex on wives in marriage. Sometime last year, a Facebook user sent a DM to me. She mentioned her husband stripping her before her children and then raping her. And that this has been done constantly, like even when she's tired, she doesn't want sex, but the man just wants to have his way. And to an extent, we've been hearing these things like men complaining he's not giving it to me when I want and all that, even when these women are tired. Is there any provision in the law in regards to rape within marriage? Yes.
All our laws, all 5 of them, that I've read that contain provisions for rape. The criminal code in the south, the penal code in the north, the Lagos criminal laws of Lagos, the violence against persons and Prohibition Act. All of them are silent on marital rape. In fact, the Lagos one specifically provides that, in fact, all of them provide that marriage within, sex within marriage, even when forced, is not rape. They specifically say a man cannot rape his wife. The Lagos one boldly says a man cannot rape his wife. So that is where we are. So whether a man forces his wife to have sex and all that within marriage, it is not considered rape under Nigerian law.
So it really means that even when the lady is being pressured, beating and all that. What if you use self-defense, like you pushed him away or something, you hit him? Can that also be termed, maybe will you have a say when it comes to domestic violence? Because
the worst you can do is ask that he's prosecuted for assault, you know. But when it comes to rape, the law does not recognize marital rape in Nigeria. Just because a person is married does not remove the person's individuality. And I must say, these things are encouraged by our cultural beliefs and religious practices. Because you hear pastors and imams telling women, I don't know why they always tell women. They don't tell the men. They always tell women that even if you are sick and dying, you should sleep with your husband. It is his right. He has a right over your body. And it doesn't make sense. This is 2018. Countries are making laws. They are constantly reviewing their rape laws to include, you know, the world is moving fast, but we're still here. Marital rape, there's nothing like marital rape under our laws. So, yeah, men are allowed to sleep with their women whenever, however, and they cannot be called to answer to that. That's what the law says.
And then considering the fact that some people have this weird sexual fantasy, like what the one we've seen cases where women complain of the men wanting anals, and where women complain that the husband only gets aroused when beaten. You have to punch, you have to bite, you have to do all those things to women. And when they run back to their parents or clerics, they tell them to either pray, or so in this cases, the only move a woman can actually make is to file for assault.
Yeah, assault. Basically, that is it. Basically, you can't accuse your husband of raping you. The law doesn't allow that. Nigerian law is silent when it comes to marital law. In fact, it specifically states in all the laws that your husband cannot rape you. So, yeah, that's what we have.
So, talking about teens and adults, how can we reduce sexual abuse among them? What are the key things, the key points to hold, to reduce sexual assaults among them? Because we've had cases where people say it's because of dressing, it's because of a particular way of life of a particular person that causes it, but still we see babies being raped. And recently, a proprietress of a popular school wrote on her Twitter handle, on Instagram, that she cautioned parents to dress down their girl children. These are pupils in primary schools, in nursery schools. How can we dress down children to fit into a particular mindset a man has? Because these are children. To me, I'm a woman actually, but I do not see what's so sexual about a child of 4, 5, 6, 7 years to 10 that would kind of bring out the sexual stuff in my head. So how do we reduce sexual abuse among teens? What are the key things to do?
That question is it's a really broad question which needs a lot of work, and I don't even know if you can reduce sexual assault, because if you see the numbers, it keeps increasing. That's the truth. Basically, the only thing you could do is to protect your children. You arm them with information on what to do, how to behave with strangers. That's the first thing you can do to your children, and to empower them to talk to you when they are treated in a particular way by adults, or if they feel uncomfortable. Encourage them, give them the confidence to leave a place when they feel uncomfortable. These are some of the things you can do. But basically, and also our laws, I always talk about our laws, the enforcement. Nigeria has some good laws, and some are still in the colonial era. They need to be brought into the 21st century. But basically, our laws are not enforced. You see a situation whereby a person is brought to the police station for raping someone, and then they'll tell you and there's nothing they can do, or the police people there will tell you, didn't you enjoy it? I mean, these are not the ways to approach rape survivors. You don't ask them silly questions like, what were you doing there, or what were you wearing? I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The survivor's actions or inactions does not matter. The fact is that the person has been violated, and that is what we should look at. So yeah, and we need a lot of sensitization around our society. Is there are some things we need to unlearn. We need to understand that when a person is raped, it is not the person's fault. It is the rapist's fault. So we have a lot of sensitization to do and all. And the laws also need to be made very strict. They need to be enforced. The police need to be sensitized on how to treat rape survivors, you know, and people need to be taught how to treat rape survivors and all. And I don't know if we can actually, because there'll always be that one person.
Okay, but are there penalties in the law for rapists?
Yes, there are. All the laws basically provide for life imprisonment for rape cases. The Child Rights Act, the Violence Against Persons Act, or even the Criminal Code. They provide for the maximum sentence a court can give is life sentence. So, but it is left at the discretion of the judge. You can give less. You can give 5 years. You can give 10 years. You can try to give 3 months. You know, I've seen some ridiculous sentences. Yeah. The law provides punishment for rape. All the laws do that. But the enforcement is the problem. From the police station, how to start prosecuting until you get sent. Sometimes the cases end at the police station. Nigerians will say, we want to settle it out of court. How do you settle a crime out of court? How do you look the person that was violated in the eyes and say, I want to settle it out of court? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't really.
In cases of rape, what should be done? And are there any agencies one can visit in case one is being raped or probably assaulted or molested?
Okay. Well, the first thing to do, I always tell people, go to a hospital. It's easy to want to go home and shower and crawl under your blanket and all that when you get raped. But the most important thing to do is to get to a hospital, because without that, you may never get justice. They need to check you out and see that you're fine, and get you the treatments that you need, STIs, pregnancy, and all that, and above all, psychological help. So yeah, get to a hospital. That's the first thing. Then afterwards, you go to the police station. In Nigeria, actually, only Lagos has a well-centered rape, like an organization, the Mirabel Center. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's inside the, I think, Lasu Teaching Hospital. They provide medical help and psychosocial help to rape survivors. So that's the only one of it I know that is well structured. You can also find the nearest feeder office. They are in all 36 states plus the FCT. FIDA is Federation of Women Lawyers. They also help a lot of rape survivors. They can help liaise with the police and help push the police to do the needful. Then other human rights organizations, there are lots of them. So those ones, their uses, they help you push your case through the police, because sometimes if you let the police, they will not do anything. So those ones serve as a bridge to help the police, to make the police do what they are supposed to do. So yeah, basically that's it.
Okay. This is what we'll be calling it a day on this program, Mata Africa. My guest has been Amina Omar Niango. Thank you so much for being part of this program.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. We've been discussing rape on today's episode. Join us again next week as we bring to you other interesting topics. I am Patience from Daniels. Thank you.